The seaside town of Brighton is blanketed in snow, and all the family gathers round the festive TV glow. Welcome to the Shadow Trap, dear listener. I'm Rosie, and with me here is my little elf friend, Bob.
Hello.
It's a happy holiday monster hunt this week, as we take to the streets to greet a fleet of festive visitors. Who is this jolly chap who comes just once a year bearing cheer, and what the fuck is in his truck? Tonight we're hunting Santa himself, and the only thing we've got to go on is Coca-Cola's 1995 ad campaign, Christmas Caravan, aka The Holidays Are Coming. Tally-ho, dear listener, the fat man cometh.
Nice.
Thank you. Well,
Do you want to ask the first question or shall I?
you can ask the first question.
Yes, I think you did last week. So we've got to kick off in the most important way. Rosie, this is the big cue. Do you believe in Santa Claus?
Amazing, isn't it, to have the question this week be one that feels so charged?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We are not the only people out there asking that question. It's a significant question. For many of us, it's a question that lots of us grapple with at some point in our lives.
Sure.
Normally a bit earlier on.
I mean, this is a question that I'm quite comfortable in answering as long as I'm allowed to make the answer quite complex. But you go first.
Well, I mean, my point is, yes, obviously, I believe in Santa Claus. And with Santa, it's a great one for the Shadow Trap, really, because this is a creature that lots of us try to come into contact with. Some of our first experiences, all of us as little monster hunters, is trying to figure out Santa.
He's the big one, isn't he?
He's the big one.
He really is. And just one of the things that, as I was thinking about the advert and the way that this is like a popular representation of Santa, how much and how desperately this kind of ritualised behaviour is kind of something that everybody does. Once a year, everybody really does try in lots of various different ways. You know, there are loads of ways of invoking Santa, but everybody's up to it at this time of year.
Absolutely.
And it is a key question.
It's a key question. I actually did set a trap for Santa as a kid.
Wow, what, like icing sugar on the floor?
No, it was a tambourine that I placed very strategically in my bedroom, thinking that if Santa came to leave the stocking, he would definitely step on it.
Yeah.
And set it off, and I'd wake up. I mean, I think maybe...
Where was the tambourine the next morning?
The tambourine was in the same place, unfortunately. I think maybe... The thing is with Santa is, you know, he's very light on his feet for a big fella.
He really is. He's wily. He's seen a lot of tricks. He's had a lot of experience at this.
Yeah.
He knows most of the tricks.
Yeah.
Oh, good on him. Good on you for trying.
Yeah.
Good on him for being smarter than you. And that's an alteration that we need to make to our notes for later on, isn't it? So one of the things you load the Shadow Trap with is a tambourine.
A tambourine?
Yeah.
It could work.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not worked so far, but maybe at some point.
A second try.
Yeah.
I've been asked this question in a quite serious way several times in the past few years. We've kind of come to the point of parenting now where I don't have to answer this question anymore. It's kind of... It's hit the complexity point. So none of it. So we're not daft enough to believe in Father Christmas, Santa Claus, for like 11 months of the year, and we're quite free to sort of be like, quite want that for Christmas, kind of stuff, you know. But when the season kind of comes, when those trucks arrive, then all of a sudden, part of the contact process involves the suspension of disbelief, right?
Yeah.
And I can quite clearly remember my daughter working out that there was no Father Christmas at the age of like 2. She basically saw some presents and was like, hang on a minute,
right,
I know what that is. And she was 2 or 3. And then the next year, that memory was completely erased.
Yeah.
I even sort of went, do you not remember? And she was just completely blank, totally didn't. And I was like, oh, okay, so she had worked out there was no Santa, but her filter is very still like pro-Santa for it. I've got a tip for anybody who doesn't want to lie to their children, because, you know, you shouldn't, and yet doesn't want to spoil the Christmas magic.
Yeah.
The strategy I worked out, like I say, don't have to worry about it so much anymore, which is great, but the precise wording I always used was, I do not know if Santa Claus is real. All I know is, I go to bed on Christmas Eve, and when I wake up, there are presents under the Christmas tree. And it's been like that every year of my entire life.
Perfect.
And leave it there.
I think that's really good.
It got us through. It wasn't a satisfying answer in the later years. You could tell that she kind of like would raise an eyebrow and be like, you haven't answered the question there really, but okay. But you know, you've got to verbally acknowledge the magic, right? You've got to buy into it and show that you're buying into it.
Yeah, there is something special that you kind of feel. I think Santa's a really interesting case as well. I think the previous monsters that we've looked at, or supernatural beings, haven't really cared whether we believe in them or not. Santa cares. Santa is amassing belief. The question, do you believe in Santa, is actually like really core to who Santa is.
Yes.
Which is absolutely fascinating, and actually, of course, he shares that characteristic with the other supernatural being that we celebrate around Christmas, our Lord and Saviour.
Oh, right, yeah, of course, yeah, I forgot about him.
Yeah. So the question of belief is important with Santa, as it is with Jesus.
And as it is with any, because I mean, I don't know how we're going to fit. Like on the last episode of the Shadow Trap, you discussed your concept of like, not hierarchies, but like next dimensional emanations of the same type of weirdo creature. Now you can track Santa back into other types of forms.
Yeah.
Lord knows we've got the Krampus around these days.
We do
who's
these days.
Like evil Santa.
Yeah.
And I read something on the internet say, like, in 20 years' time, you realise that Krampus will be as big as Santa.
Yeah.
And everyone will always think that Krampus was always there. So you can kind of apply the levelling up and down to Santa a little bit, but also, a bit like our Saviour, the kind of the requirement of faith is part of the thing, isn't it? It's part of taking that one step.
Yes. Exactly, someone has to make the first move.
Yeah.
And that is what's required of us this time of year. And it's perfect, of course, for shadow trapping.
It's nice. In fact, it's kind of an evil use of faith, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a faith, sorry, not faith. To be able to weaponise it in such a cruel way, to draw this kind of nice man with loads of presents into a dark box and then keep him there.
Well, we'll see. Also with Santa, obviously there's lots of related creatures. You've touched on Krampus. We also, of course, have the elves and Mrs. Claus, who I never really...
Yeah, that feels like somebody who had to do some writing one day for a deadline.
Yeah.
Pull out that one.
Suddenly Mrs. Claus is there. Neither of them are present in our text tonight, which is Santa-focused.
No, indeed. Of course, the other one's the reindeer, right?
Oh my goodness! Sorry, of course. How could I forget?
But I think that they are in the advert a bit.
The reindeer are strongly implied.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I believe in Santa.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome.
Obviously.
So our text for tonight is the 1995 Holidays Are Coming Out. That's not the real name for it. The real name is...
Christmas Caravan.
But everyone calls it Holidays Are Coming because of the awesome theme tune.
Yep.
It was first kind of shown in 1995, and then there was a second version in 1998, basically the same concept but a bit more budgety.
Yeah.
Then again in 1999, basically just another rerun. Kind of the one thing you might know about the difference between these three versions, we're concentrating on the classic version, 1995, pretty much tonight. The major difference that you might see in the other two is that there is actually a bottle of Coke in it, or like it's made quite clear that Santa Claus is dropping off tons of Coke for the entire town.
Yeah.
Whereas in the first one, in 95, as we'll see, there's a much more kind of numinous spirit of something.
Yeah, just kind of driving through and turning the twinkly lights on.
Yeah, you get a real sense that someone in the office the next day said, thanks guys, but like the first rule of marketing is you've got to show the product. And apart from like a small picture on the back of a van, you guys totally didn't manage that. So I think that happened in 98. It was put together by an ad agency called WB Donner, who were, a pretty famous ad agency dating way back into, the classic Mad Av kind of times.
Yes, I saw that they'd done an advert for Timex watches. It takes a licking and keeps on ticking.
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
Yeah,
They also did Mazda's Zoom Zoom advert from the late 90s. Zoom Zoom.
Yeah, I remember, yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, so they're around.
Yeah, they're around.
I guess the thing that we've got to note with that is that they're called the WB Donner Company. So not only do they share this kind of like nice kind of nomenclature link with one of our favourite kebabs, which get eaten on Christmas,
Yes.
and one of Santa's reindeer, which has the name Donner as well.
It does.
It's kind of usually translated as meaning thunder. So I think for an ad agency to have a name which implies a great noise is kind of auspicious for them. Perhaps less auspiciously would be that in early '96, so really quite shortly after the massive success of the '95 Christmas campaign, the headquarters in America, somewhere in America, burnt down.
Oh no!
Right, and without going too heavily into the folklore of what Santa may come from yet, there's maybe a fire thing that they got a bit too close to and got their fingers burnt with.
Oh, quite possibly. Or it was all just the fairy lights, because I know they got Industrial Light and Magic to do the actual trucks themselves, which are beautifully done.
Yes, no, I thought that I was really impressed by the quality of the effects actually. I was like, well, it looks like there's loads of trucks well done.
Yeah. And actually, I think this is a really nice thing to be working with, text to be working with on the Shadow Trap, because previously we have dealt with depictions of particular phenomena. This advert, for many people, feels like a channeling of that phenomena. Loads of people, it's a huge thing in the UK. Lots and lots of people will tell you that they first start to feel Christmassy when that advert comes on.
Yeah, there are so many good reasons for that. Like the music's obviously really important, we'll come to that later. But the advert is interesting because it's an advert, right? It's doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's really nice that we've opened up the kind of scope of text that we're allowed to shove into the Shadow Trap with this, because having something that kind of is built to serve a very clear, short, direct purpose kind of fits in with what we're trying to squeeze out of a lot of the text that we study as well. We're kind of looking for a roadmap, and actually this is an advert. It couldn't get more direct A to B than this.
Yeah, completely.
The other kind of like big name that's involved in the production of the campaign itself is a chap called Haddon Sundblom. He drew this Santa Claus, the one that we are also familiar with, the one that people will tell you was the first ever Santa Claus of wearing red with a beard or something, which isn't true, but again, just the kind of the sheer...
Is that not true? Because I always thought it was.
No, it's not true. He was depicted in red, so like it's awesome, right? The red is where he skinned a reindeer and turned its skin inside out.
Santa?
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So like the kind of the nasty, like scary ass shaman Santa back in the olden days.
Yeah.
After he's drunk the reindeer wee,
yeah,
he kills the reindeer and wraps its skin around and it's red on the outside. That's why. So it's like blood.
Wow, no wonder Rudolph was so well behaved.
Exactly. And that depiction was fairly kind of standard.
Okay.
However, Sundblom did a really wonderful rendering of it, and it had Coke's money behind it. Coca-Cola are a notoriously like aggressive and brand focused, marketing machine. They produce two things: they produce drink and they produce the Coca-Cola brand, and they do it very well and have done for a very long time. And Sundblom he's like kind of one of the giants of American commercial art, kind of just because he did that.
Right.
So all of a sudden this kind of jolly figure that we all associate with Father Christmas as being, with his, he looks like he's been drinking, but actually he's only been drinking Coke, all kind of comes out really nicely and sort of fits very well with the story again of this being an advert. It's like the kind of the story of the advert and how Coke's advertising created Christmas kind of overtakes itself, and that the fact that urban legend persists connects to what you were just saying about the way that people associate the beginning of Christmas with the beginning of this advert, and the kind of the weird blanket that Coke have managed to maintain over such a otherwise universalised and luminous and magical time of the year.
It's really impressive. It really is. I mean, like, the linking of Coca-Cola and Christmas is extremely thorough. And, as you say, the way that they managed to tap into Santa himself. They seem to have a direct line, almost. I wouldn't be surprised.
I know, and it's kind of monstrous, right?
Yeah.
Like, everyone... Like, I've obviously, one of the side effects of doing the Shadow Trap is that you end up thinking way too much about things like this, which maybe you don't need to think about too much.
Yeah.
But I began to think terrible thoughts about Santa, about like, you know, the devil's greatest trick is convincing you that he didn't exist or that he was a good thing, you know, nice guy. But I've you know, we're into the second week of December now. Those thoughts are actually quite far back at the end in my head now.
Good.
Sunblum, yeah, kind of like, so this rendering of Santa is like, you know, the word iconic is obviously horribly overused, but there's no other word to describe exactly what this is and does. He did this other thing, so I was looking him up, Sunblum. There's a nice, again, like the Donner Company, there's this kind of name connection with...
Sunblum.
Sunblum, yeah, Sunblum, sunflower, right?
Yeah,
nice,
yeah.
But there's a German vibe, right? There's a North European Christmas being transplanted to America feeling here about this, we'll talk about in a bit as well. But I've got to touch on Sprite Boy.
Sprite Boy.
Sprite Boy. So like, Sunblum was like the king of commercial art, the king of Coke advertising especially. He landed a big damn fish with this 1931 picture of Santa. After that he could kind of do no wrong. Until, in the 1940s, they decided that they needed a new campaign that would link, so Coca-Cola was so popular and widely drunk and used that people had been calling it Coke for a long time. And this advert, this Sprite Boy led campaign, was their attempt to bring the Coke and Coca-Cola brands back together to kind of reclaim possession of the fact that people were calling it Coke, making it very clear that when people use this word, there are lots of reasons why they might want to be a bit iffy about what that word means in people's popular imagination. Obviously, they associate the word in the drink still.
Right, so Coke always refers to Coca-Cola.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the way they tried to do this campaign was being led by this thing called Sprite Boy. Now, I was thinking about it and kind of like, maybe at the time he was meant to look like a busboy or something, you know, with like a weird little round hat kind of perched on the front of his head.
Okay, yeah, like a bellhop.
Bellhop, yeah, exactly. Like he's a friendly, cheeky, fast little chappy who'll come and bring you stuff.
Yeah.
And what he's bringing you obviously is Coca-Cola. Fantastic, thanks very much, Sprite Boy. He's got a little dicky bow, and he's got kind of he's an elf, you know. He's kind of he looks quite good next to Santa. He's got his like kind of punky yellow hair. But the hat, it just looks like he suffered a terrible injury now when you look at it. He looks like something from like a surrealist superhero cartoon. It's like a Coke bottle, Coca-Cola, really big, with like the sharp bits on the edge of a bottle that you have to like lever off.
Yeah.
Just like embedded in his massive forehead.
Wow!
And it looks really like he's suffering a terrible trauma. He's got a Coke-sponsored plate in his cranium because of some terrible accident that's befallen the poor guy. And Sprite Boy... kind of looked a bit weird and wrong. He's worth looking up. And Sunblum's career, kind of not to say that he didn't recover from it, you know, he's still a legend, but like, magic could desert him, and Sprite Boy was pushed to the back of the campaign within a few years.
I'm sorry to hear that. I wish he was still with us, sporting his little injury.
We'll share some pictures of him because he, you feel sorry for Sprite Boy when you see him. He looks so happy to be drinking Coke, and you're like, that boy's not right.
Brilliant. So,
Okay, shall we just get into the trap?
yeah, get into the track. Are we doing what do we say? I feel like we've already done it. Santa Claus is that man wearing red. We've kind of talked about it, or have you got more?
Let's do the Santa Claus Father Christmas thing.
Oh, yeah, okay. Right, into our research methodology. We have the text, now we have our questions. Number one is, what do we seek? It is Santa Claus. It's not the elves, it's not Mrs. Claus, it's not Sprite Boy.
We're going to have to do a Sprite Boy episode. When it comes to sprites, we're hitting Sprite Boy hard.
When we fully run out of every other creature, which will happen at some point.
Well, God willing, yeah.
Yeah, Sprite Boy time.
And Santa Claus has got these millions of names, right? Like, specifically the American ones, because, you know, this is an American version of Christmas that we're seeing. They call him Kris Kringle, because I think it sounds like Kris Tingle, or...
I've heard Kris Kringle, yeah.
Yeah,
it's a fun one.
Pelzernickel, which is, you know, again, just the most German word that you can kind of imagine.
Yeah.
You expect him to be a bit like Satan, and have these endless nicknames.
Yes.
Old Nick. Oh, that's the other person, right? So he's obviously based on this kind of thing of St. Nicholas. the Sundblom's portrait was based upon a very famous poem, you know, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," Clark Moore, 1822 poem, where the description of the round belly, chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. The wink of the eye and the twist of the head is almost exactly what's done on the back of the van, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
But also, this big man winking and twisting his head at you does not sound like something you don't need to dread. Like, I read that poem in your notes box and I was like, oh, creepy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of like, that's the kind of dramatic twist in the poem, is where you kind of go, this is awful. What's going on with this poor child? And then he's like, no, it's fine, it's Santa. You're like, I'll take your word for it. But yeah, so like, it is weird that Satan and Santa are anagrams of each other.
Yeah.
They have this similar kind of multiplicity.
They do.
And they also kind of like object in a similar way. There's something about Santa and his innate generosity which is very different to human life for the other 11 months of the year.
Right,
That's
okay.
why we like him.
Yeah. And a creature who maybe is involved in non-standard forms of exchange with human beings.
Absolutely.
Which Satan certainly is
Yeah.
all the time.
Because what else does Santa Claus want, if not your soul?
Well, we will have to go to that because it is one of our questions. We will see.
Oh yeah, thanks. Sorry. Jumping ahead again. So we're after Santa. Oh yeah, quick clarification. Father Christmas is his job.
Yes.
Santa Claus, which obviously comes from like Saint Nick or whatever, is his name, Saint Nicholas.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
I wanted to give a shout out actually to one of our lovely listeners, Eric Otterberg, who is in Sweden, and shared that they called him Jultomten.
Right.
I think I mispronounced that.
I think you probably have.
I think I probably have. I'm sorry for that, Eric, but I just have been having so much fun saying that word over the last week.
Yes, joyful words to be saying.
It's
yeah,
a very
so nice.
fun
Yeah.
word, Jultomten.
Jultomten. Yeah, he's got loads, and like, shout out to Eric, because like nobody does Christmas like that. Like, we have this kind of Victorian Christmas, which we all know very well, came to the UK directly from Germany and
Prince Albert,
Queen Victoria's hubby, and the American Christmas that we get in this advert has come from a very similar space, like direction, but hasn't made the detour through the UK really. So a lot of the iconography that we are familiar with is still there, but it's kind of deployed in a slightly different way and speaks to a sense of community in a slightly different way.
I think so.
Something about the way they walk out onto the street, which we would never do.
We would never do that. No.
Question 2 then. Where should we go?
Right. Well, I think the thing in this advert that depicts quite well is the sense of domesticity and the sense of home. I think this is really important to Christmas. The idea that it is not another place that you go to. Your place where you are right now becomes enchanted. Your house, your room, your chimney, Santa Claus comes right in. You don't even have to meet him on the doorstep.
Yeah, even if you don't have a chimney, he still gets in there.
Somehow.
Yeah, he'll get through the
chimney.
window. Yeah, he'll get through the window. He'll dodge the tambourine. Like,
yeah,
he's getting in.
He's a wily guy.
But this is like small town America as idealised and beautified, and we see the miracle of beauty kind of touching it. That's the whole point of this is the narrative of the advert, which we probably haven't even touched upon yet because we assume everybody knows. But the trucks, there's the sound, the ringing of the bells, and the kind of the slightly the choral-like overtones of the song beginning to be heard. The trucks arrive, and then suddenly this kind of quiet, snowy, dark, cold-looking town. The lights come on, the Christmas lights come on, more specifically. It's not just like illuminated, it's illuminated in a sparkly, special Christmas way, and the trees are lit and the bridge is lit. And you never actually see, and I'd completely misremembered this because of the impressions of the 98 and the 99 versions, but in the 95 version, you don't even see the town. It just appears, your focus is on the train of trucks moving through the outskirts of the town.
Oh, I thought you saw the town. Okay, so that's the later maybe.
Well, yeah. The kind of the feeling of being in the town and kind of that and being with your neighbours, that all comes in the sequel and the threequel. But in the original one, you only see the town kind of off in the distance as the trucks are continuing to head towards it, and even though the trucks haven't quite got there yet, the town suddenly comes to life, just like the rest of everything else has, all the outskirts of the town. And again, like, shout out to ILM for doing a wonderful job, because, you know, this kind of black space in the middle of the screen suddenly becomes this living space, this wonderful kind of enchanted thing. And you just buy it completely. Like, the implication of reality with like these effects, or unreality that the effects achieve, does the damn job. So, but we're in small town USA. Santa here is like a fulfillment of the American promise to enjoy your freedom.
Oh yeah.
Right. And your freedom to not be cold, to not be alone, to not be hungry, and kind of more than that, to just be like in a position to really enjoy your appetites and make the most of them.
Yeah.
Part of that is kind of comes from the weird, like, sugary rush of coca-cola. Part of that comes from, you know, just the fact that it's cold and you've got to stay together, you've got to go indoors, and you've got to gather up with the people around you to, you know, for spiritual warmth as much as physical warmth. And that implication of home is really there, and it's a special kind of there's like a European American diaspora thing going on here, which feels kind of familiar but kind of strange at the same time. I'm not even sure how many like non-Irish, say white American cultures would feel that connection to it being something which is quite clearly been transplanted from another continent. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's a bit like, do they really know that it's kind of reaching out to that type of whiteness, or is it just like a more generalised thing? Over here, I think it was quite successfully generalised just because the royal family started doing it, and so everybody else had to. But this feels more like something which radiated out of specific communities into other ones in a pattern of kind of cultural dominance, which maybe has some frictions in there.
Right. I mean, I think the idea that it's a home that in some way embodies a sense of exclusion is really important, actually, because that's everyone's experience of Christmas to a greater or lesser extent. The whole sense that Christmas is something that we can never quite reach. Like, we all have this idea in our head, we all believe in Santa, we all believe more broadly in Christmas as this special magical time event, and we all kind of have the experience of falling short. It's often a source of a lot of arguing. This is why families fall out over Christmas, of course, because everyone has this idea in their head of the perfect Christmas, and nobody feels like they're doing it properly.
Right.
Everyone, so you constantly kind of feel on the outside of it, and just very occasionally you feel like you've kind of slipped into the right slipstream, and there you are.
Yeah.
But only for seconds at a time.
Yeah, and they kind of, you only notice them retroactively. Like, one of the good things the advert does is give you, I'm probably jumping ahead, sorry, but it gives you like that tangible Christmas thing as something which exists upon a continuum, which you can access in lots of different ways, and that kind of not sneak up on you because you know that they're coming, or you know that they're there to be found, but they're kind of the things that are going to make you notice it are going to be unpredictable. There's like, or at least they're going to be invisible. You know, they're going to kind of, they're not like, you're not going to see Santa.
Yeah.
But you are going to hear the Holidays Are Coming theme tune.
Yeah.
You are going to be aware of the trucks moving through your town. And you are going to be aware of people being a bit more drunk and smiling. And then maybe kind of, you know, when you're in February and feeling like you want to kill yourself, you're like, oh, Christmas was nice.
It was nice, actually.
Yeah.
Did you know the trucks actually do go round the UK?
Yeah.
It's funny. They're not coming to Brighton this year. I was disappointed. I thought we could do an outing, but
that would have been good photos, good content.
It would have been excellent content, but there we go. The guys who drive it, one of the guys, there was like a little interview with him in the Telegraph.
Right.
And he was like, you know, it's a dream come true driving this truck. I thought that was really nice.
Hang on, I think I read the same thing, and the guy was like, I've had people propose to me.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Because he wants to, because people just love the Santa Claus truck so much.
Yeah.
I noticed that one of them is going to Yeovil, a town from like my neck of the woods, and I was like, that's the best thing that's ever happened to Yeovil. Like that, like, yeah, you can imagine that the Santa truck arriving is probably the whole idea.
Yeah. Well, coming to your town, how exciting.
Yeah, it's really good. And I don't know if that happens in America, right? I think maybe the advert is a bigger thing here, than it is over there?
I think maybe it is. I'm not entirely sure about that. I know there's that later spin-off advert from like 2006 or something that was only shown in the UK, which is we're not going to go into. It's actually a bit of an embarrassment. I find it really, really not good.
You can totally imagine what a company like Coke would do to their kind of like perfect, beautiful, low-key ad, not low-key, but perfect and beautiful kind of ad campaign when they try to resurrect it 10 years later. You can imagine how they'd get it wrong. They do get it wrong in all those ways.
It doesn't really work, but that was just shown in the UK. But I think it's absolutely huge here.
So if you're an American listener and you don't know what the hell we're talking about, we're really sorry.
Sorry about that, guys.
Merry Christmas.
It's a cultural touchstone over here, so thank you very much.
Maybe that's part of the thing, though, right? Maybe because it's such a kind of like okay, so we in the UK, we don't like to talk about it very much, but you know, we're a colony of the US, right? Like pretty much.
Culturally speaking.
Yeah, I mean politically as well. I mean.
Well, yeah, obviously politically.
and like they sell their culture here massively, and we buy it very happily. I think that maybe this image of America is like a thing that they sell to the rubes abroad, and that people at home maybe are a bit like, that isn't how we do Christmas actually. So, but let us know.
Yeah. Right. Our next question, where do they come from? As we know, Santa comes from somewhere chilly, and in fact he brings the snow with him. I think it's implied in this advert that the snow maybe only fell that night. I feel like the snow is new as well as the twinkly lights.
The snow, because we're on the outskirts of town, it's quite difficult to see because maybe these places wouldn't. Sorry, I'm getting a bit too much into the textual reality of the advert right now. but the areas that we see are places where people tend not to be treading anyway.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, pretty much all of the snow that we see is virgin snow. Looks like it hasn't been trampled in, like hasn't gone brown and slushy and disgusting like it does within 6 minutes here.
Absolutely, I think the snow comes with him.
Yeah, or it's like it's the early harbinger. Is the snow?
Yes.
Then you hear the echoing, then you hear the bells, and then then you get awesome trucks coming through.
Yeah.
So Lapland, he comes from.
He comes from Lapland.
He lives there the year round with his elves and with his wife, but
Maybe his wife. Who knows?
But like this is one of those ones where where they come from is definitely not the same as where we need to go because the space is brought to us, and that's the whole point.
It's really important. I mean, it's really important to our whole sense of Christmas is the idea that some of the key figures of Christmas are undertaking massive journeys. We have it with the wise men, of course, who also have beards and bring presents.
Yeah.
in the Christian narrative of the Nativity, and we also have it, of course, on a kind of day-to-day level in our own lives. We know that for many of us, Christmas means undertaking huge journeys.
Yeah, well, that trip home is quite important.
Replacement services.
Oh, pain in the neck. Yeah, it really is.
So the idea of something travelling to you is quite important. The sense of Santa is that his transportation is very much part of the magic.
Yeah, so that's weird. So what I just said about it coming to you, that's kind of reflected back in our own actions, isn't it? It's almost like there is a reciprocal, like we're saying, if we're talking about this as an invocation, and we're not, we're talking about it as a trap. But if we were talking about it as an invocation, then there would be a reciprocal process at work here, right? Like you've taken that step to go and travel to him.
Yep.
Therefore he will come to travel to you too. You're met halfway.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the logic of the gift.
Yeah.
Of course, which is Santa embodies. Why does he live in a cold climate? Is it simply because that's where the reindeers are and that's where the elves are? And also because that's the best temperature to serve Coke.
Certainly doesn't hurt, does it?
It doesn't hurt.
That's the thing. That's kind of like the worst bit in the '98 sequel.
Yeah.
Is when as the trucks passed and the kind of the twinkly light of the trucks passes over, just like a big snowdrift, just like 4 Coke bottles just appear implanted in it, and it's like, oh yeah, it's just like it was waiting to give you a nice chilled Coke, and you're also like, it's far too cold to be drinking chilled fizzy drinks.
Yeah, actually, in the snow.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Not what you want.
Some mulled cider would be much preferable, thank you.
But yeah, I guess maybe it's just really practical. I also think that so is Lapland the same as the North Pole? Because you said he comes from Lapland, and I feel like he comes from the North Pole.
You're right. He comes from the North Pole.
But is it? I actually don't know.
I think no, I don't know either. I'm pretty sure Lapland is an area that straddles kind of bits of Norway and
Okay.
Norway and Sweden.
Okay.
No idea if Norway and Sweden are even next to each other.
I think they are.
Yeah, I think they are. Maybe Norway and Denmark. I don't know.
Yeah. Whereas the North Pole is literally the magnetic north.
Yeah,
Pole.
and those kind of territories are like the nearest land to it there.
Yes.
I guess, apart from parts of like northern Russia, Siberia.
Yeah, I think so.
But you're right. It's not Lapland. It's the North Pole. It's a much more magical place.
Which is interesting because the North Pole is no man's land.
Yeah.
Like, it's completely unclaimed territory, and I wonder if, again, it's just Santa being very practically minded in it to, you know, get around labour laws and stuff like that. He's just set up.
Well, I mean, that was another one of the thoughts which I decided to push to the back of my head, like the exploitative relationship of like elves and Santa,
Yeah.
where this all fits in. I think we have to trust, you know, the movie Elf and Will Ferrell in that, and they're happy elves.
They're having a great time.
Yeah, honestly, it's okay.
And we don't even need to think, they're not even in this advert. So,
No, they're not, thankfully.
Because I don't think the trucks are being driven by elves. Maybe reindeer.
I think the trucks are kind of, well, that's the thing, is that the trucks are the reindeer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have a kind of an independent motive force of their own. They're self-driving. They're like Tesla cars.
Yeah. No, they absolutely are magical.
Yeah. And our fourth question then is, what do they want? Like, what does Santa want?
What does Santa want? I mean, this is... we found previously on the show that the desire of the creatures kind of align with our own desire. And certainly that was the case, you know, the ghosts from the Innocents align with kind of self-destructive, perverse tendencies, as do in fact werewolves, and goblins align with our desire to sit around and
Be lazy.
be lazy and fight each other. And Santa also seems to align with our own desires for this time of year, the spreading of joy. He doesn't seem particularly destructive this time around, perhaps.
No, I agree. It's like he kind of comes. He wants what we want, and we kind of need it at this point. Like the thing I really like about surprise guys, I'm like an autumn winter person.
Yeah, big surprise.
Yeah, big surprise.
Yeah, me too.
And you know, we like the winter because it brings us close together. Because you have to huddle, you get to stay indoors, you get to turn the warmth up, and you get to, you know, and once you're doing those things, you have to you're forced to just enjoy yourself, really.
Yeah.
And living in a cold climate, living in places where, you know, just stuff's a bit bare and there's nothing to do. Like the winter's long.
It's long.
Like even autumn winter people like myself, you know, February sucks, man. You're like you're ready for it to go by then.
February is the absolute worst.
Yeah. And without Christmas, like, and you know, without, I know this is like a sociological tendency or whatever, but without Christmas, oh my God.
Yeah, it would be awful.
Yeah.
It would be awful.
What
it
would life
be.
be like?
It would be far too long.
Yeah. So like the fact that he wants to give us that is kind of he's answering that need in us. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, obviously. But like he's like, we need presents. He's going to bring them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He's gonna show up like a little bit of sunshine in the deep of midwinter.
And it's nice that he that kind of the slight paradox there, that he'll only come if he's called A, and that he'll want the same thing that we want B, is interesting, right? Because he's a creature of real appetite, but his appetite is for generosity. He's kind of like anal and oral and expulsive and contractive at the same time. He gets through a hell of a lot of mince pies.
He eats so many mince pies.
So much whiskey.
I was going to ask about this. This is a side note, but what I believe mince pies are a specifically British thing. I could be wrong about that, and please do let us know, listeners.
You're trying to break the internet.
What does he eat in countries where they don't have mince pies?
Oh, Stollen.
In America, they give him a hot dog.
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah, some fries. And some Coke.
Yeah. I was just wondering, because we leave out mince pies and maybe a glass of brandy, but I wonder. And carrots for the reindeer.
Carrots for the reindeer, yeah. which I can speak to this, having actually, you know, having gone the full hog with the invocation of Santa several times in the past. Like, mince pie, fine. The whiskey is very welcome. The carrot, I feel like, you serious? Why are you going to have to eat that before bedtime?
A big bite on a carrot. A big Rudolph sauce.
Quietly! Don't sound like you're eating a carrot before you go to bed, you idiot. I have in the past cut it off, thrown the carrot in the bin, and then just put like a bite mark in it.
Oh my god!
I wasn't going to eat
You
it.
absolute wimp.
I wasn't going to eat a carrot.
Eat
It was
that
time. It was
carrot.
time for bed.
Yeah, so Santa consumes a lot of mince pies.
There's like, he's so busy, and he brings this promise of celebration, but part of the celebration is that we may rest as well. There's like, it's a holiday, and here holiday means you chill out.
Yeah.
You're not at work, and I mean, there's like the spectre of capitalism like hovers over this entire thing so horribly. But one of the most important things about Christmas, obviously, is that you're not at work.
Yeah.
You know, like Bob Cratchit, he gets Christmas Day off, and god damn does he make the most of it. You know,
really
it's
does.
like, you know, you really have to. And that leisure and that freedom to do with your time what you want, and to, you know, have your own appetites, like Santa's kind of validated, as in like you're allowed to have them. On the dark side, and like, yeah, again, been thinking too hard about this, that kind of validates your participation in the circuit for the rest of the year as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
well, you've got to produce this stuff, otherwise you're never going to get, or you don't deserve it even, which I think is kind of massively antithetical to what I think is the important thing about Christmas. But yeah, that, like, if you don't have that kind of break, then you can't get back into it.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea that that he is so set up around how this fits in with his appetite and what he wants, that he's so set up around giving, because we know from anthropological studies of gift giving, which are very extensive, it's a hugely interesting topic to anthropologists, that, you know, gift giving is a way in which we kind of expand our presence in the world. If I give you a present and someone comes around your house and goes, oh, that's a nice book, where's that from? And you say, Rosie, I have successfully made my sphere bigger. I have successfully grown my own presence. And obviously the nice thing with gift giving is it's a reciprocal thing. And so we can all, it's not a zero-sum game.
Yeah, no, sure.
We all gain, we all get bigger. Which of course happens over Christmas because
Literally.
we eat too much. But I do like this sense that Santa, who gives all the time, that's all he does, is a big man with a big booming voice, a ho ho ho. You need a whole fleet of trucks for Santa. You know, he takes up space. And that is the spirit of gift giving. It's taking up more space in the world.
That's kind of that magic of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is that, like, it's a perpetual motion machine. It's like, it's free energy. Like,
Yes.
Santa is able to give stuff because he wants stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all he takes back is a little mince pie and some of our belief.
6 billion mince pies or whatever, like, that's a lot.
Well, yeah.
Or some stolen.
Or some stolen or whatever he
Please
gets.
fill in the gaps for
Yeah,
us, guys.
please
We're
do.
really stuck here. We're like, see, this is the, we don't even know whether people celebrate Christmas in other countries. We're kind of hopeless, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was slightly concerned there is that we do know from anthropology, studies of gift giving, that the reciprocal thing is quite important. This is why it sets up the expectation of a relationship that is going to be ongoing.
Well, like we covered in episodes of Diane, it can be a curse, right? The expectation can be its own demand.
Absolutely, this is why we don't like to receive gifts from people we don't like.
Yeah.
And I am slightly concerned now, also getting paranoid, Bobsy, that Santa doesn't take the whole present. He never takes the whole mince pie, and the reindeer never eat all the carrots. And I just feel like maybe he's setting up something of a deficit. And then I thought about what he's doing with this advertising campaign that I assume he's actually ultimately in charge of. And
Feels like it, doesn't it? Yeah.
and it feels like it's extending it to everyone drinking Coke during Christmas. The Coca-Cola company are trying to make us think that everyone drinking Coke during Christmas is getting it from Santa. But that would be a very good thing for Santa to make us think as well, wouldn't it? Because then he extends the debt enormously.
Throughout the entire year,
Yeah.
in a really like obvious way. That's a terrifying thing to think that Coke branding is Christmas branding, and that like the eye of Christmas is upon you all year round, making sure that you're okay.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been a good little producer and earned your enough cash over the year to give your kids good presents, Christmas isn't going to be very merry. Krampus is going to come instead.
It's a miserable thing.
Jeez.
So there we go. So not only does Santa amass belief and rake it in, he's also maybe amassing huge...
Karmic debt. Yeah.
We'll see.
Is it cold in here? It's just like-
Question number 5. What kind of disguise should we wear?
Yeah, aka what kind of person should we be?
What kind of person should we be? I mean, we ought to be, I think, in its purest and best form, a child. And that's what we see in the advert, right? Children are centre stage.
I love it. We should stress that, it was a very 90s thing actually to kind of, start to look upon adverts as if they were works of art in their own right. And I think the impact of this advert may have been one of the things that kicked it off, because it's just perfectly constructed. Like, it's just a minute of absolute signal, total clarity, total kind of fulfillment of its own promise, total kind of like achievement of its own goals. It's a really brilliant piece of work, and I think that one of the best bits in it is at the very beginning, and you see 2 children kind of in the darkness before the trucks arrive. They start to perk up because they can hear the trucks coming, but they're dragging their sled, so they're maybe they're coming back from this fresh, the first sledge of the year, having followed this fresh fall.
Yep.
But there's just 2 kids walking alone in the dark, and that's verboten. You can't, like, kids aren't allowed to do that. It's like, where are their parents?
Right.
But this advert suspends that, and it's like, no, it's fine. There's 2 kids on their own in the dark, walking home from a bloody good day sledging, and you know what the most dangerous thing they have to worry about is? It's not being knocked over by the Santa trucks. It's like, this is bliss.
Absolute bliss. Yeah, I mean, and it is always children. I like that sense that they're kind of in a world of children at that stage, so it's fine for them to walk out on their own. And I think that's almost what that advert wants us to feel like, because you see the old gentleman putting up his lights on his house, and then suddenly the wonder as they sort of come on without him plugging them in, and it is, I would be amazed if in the brief for that advert the word childlike wonder was not underlined several times.
Yeah.
This is how Santa wants to relate to us, is as children.
Yeah, right. He transforms the old man into a boy by kind of giving him this little treat, doesn't he? And again, it's like, it's just time off. It's like, don't worry about it, mate. I can sort that out with a click of my fingers. And also like the relationship between parents and children, like of parents connecting with their kids. Like, I can attest that as you get older and you start to not get into Christmas so much, and you're a bit like, this is a bit of a hassle actually, blah 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 blah, that you can turn that around by having a kid around,
right?
And you're like, yeah, no, Christmas is just freaking awesome again. So the relationship between the boy and the dad as they're in the little truck, as they have to kind of wait and stop, again, normality is suspended for a few moments, and in that time, while they're just waiting for the red light to turn green, both Christmas colours, by the way, the dad and the boy are able to just, have a moment together, enjoy the sense of the thing coming. Good times.
Yeah.
On to the next question, question 6. What signs of presence must we look out for?
Well, I mean, there are several, but I would say first, it's really interesting that looking out for signs of presence is a key part of the Santa mythos. Hypervigilance. Watch out, look around. The song tells us.
Yeah.
And indeed, Santa Claus is coming to town. The sense of vigilance in that as well. You better watch out.
Even going back to that poem, it's the kid who's kind of like looking out for him to come. He first sees him arrive.
Yeah. So looking for those signs, and we're kind of told to expect him, and that you'll know he's coming. That's
the nice addition in the 1998 version as well, is that there's actually the first kind of moment of action that you see in the 98 version is like a boy running up a hill or something, and like kind of kicking open the door to the bell tower, jumping up and ringing the bell because because he's just spotted the trucks on the horizon. And it's like the whole town is like, oh my god, they've got a special bell just for when this arrives. Like hypervigilance. This town is actually... It's
set up.
Yeah, created its own vigilance.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So that's really important. And then what we do see is, in fact, the ringing of bells, of sleigh bells. That'll be one of your first signs, and is indeed in the advert, I think, is one of the first.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of... the sound mixing and everything on it is so great. So there's a kind of an indistinct echo with a kind of a chimey aspect to it, and you're not quite sure what does arrive first. But I think the first thing in the mix that kind of coalesces as an identifiable sound is the bells. But the kind of the echoey voices of the choir behind them kind of gives a bit of depth to the ring of the bell. So I think, yeah, technically the bell is the first one that you hear. But the way the music kind of hits its kind of like welcome crescendo kind of thing is just stunning. The rhythm of it, the way that it's a chant, the way that you have to take deep breaths, which gets your heart pumping and turns your cheeks red in order to get the holidays are coming bit out properly. The way you just can't get it out of your head for just like weeks and weeks and weeks. Yeah, listen out for this music. It's really, really key to the whole thing, and it works on so many levels.
I think it's really interesting that it's choir music as well, isn't it? And again, we see this throughout sort of Christmas iconography. The Christian story is kind of there. And the sense of Christianity is kind of there, but it's really not in the forefront. I was actually just reminded, with you talking about the music, there's an anthropologist who works in the UK, Matthew Engelka. I can't remember where he is. I think he might be at LSE.
Right.
He has done work on ambient Christianity around Christmas.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, just the sense of like a background, kind of low level. You can kind of tune it out or not, but it's kind of there. And I feel like the choir music is maybe
definitely one of those signs. And again, sorry to keep going on about it, but actually maybe in the way that the two things differ actually shows us a lot about what is the first one about. The bell tower, it's like he's gone to church to announce the in the second advert, it's like he's gone to the church to announce Father Christmas coming. It does have this kind of like churchy significance, but actually no, you can leave that.
You can leave that out as well.
Yeah, no, that's really nice. And again, it's an old building, so there's like the foundation here, maybe Christianity, but actually that's, well, as we all know, that's not true. The foundation that Christianity is on top of is kind of older and pagan or whatever.
Pagan.
So then it was kind of re-Christianized as these things were, and then kind of but then the kind of the suppressed content bubbles up into the ether again, and actually I think most people's experience of Christmas, as this advert makes clear, is very sort of ungodly, shall we say. Ungodly with a capital G.
Yeah.
Even Saint Nick, he was like he was pretty rad, wasn't he?
I don't know anything about Saint Nick.
Oh, okay, so he was like a Black Sea pirate, basically. He was.
Wow.
Yeah. He was like Russian aristocracy, kick-ass, ruled the high seas for years, made a fortune, retired, went to some town somewhere, spent all of his cash just being ace with kids and giving them presents.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
What
Do you know
a
what I mean?
cool guy.
And got sanctified for it. And it's like, what better things to be sanctified for? He's also like, because of his like long and checkered career of piracy, I mean, he probably did have a big karmic debt that he needed to pay off.
He probably did.
Yeah. He's the patron saint of thieves and like candle makers and all kinds of like random things.
I know.
Yeah, but yeah, that's interesting is that he's a thief. So like, there's something about. Yeah, okay, so...
Where does he get all those toys?
Yeah, where does he get all those toys from, yeah. And it is almost like, for a while, it's being stolen from our circuitry of production. It's like the circuit is complete when you pay for it and earn it and fight for it. This cuts off that rubbish bit at the end and just jumps straight to the good stuff. Here you go, you get a present because you deserve one, because you can have one, because there's a present there to be had, why wouldn't you have it?
Very nice.
How then do we draw them in, is question 7.
Yeah, what kind of bait are we using? Okay, so we've already touched on the mince pie thing.
I think that's like, he's going to turn up anyway, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have to, like, for the purposes of getting him in the trap, he'll turn up anyway. He doesn't need the mince pie necessarily to be...
No, the mince pie is the gift we give him back. Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
fair
if you
enough.
don't have a mince pie there, then suddenly your presents might be a bit less good than you were hoping they would be.
Or next year, they might be.
Yeah, it's a bit too late, yeah, absolutely. He's like, oh, thanks guys, gotta remember this one. That's the other thing, he has got a long memory. You have to be it's your goodness, isn't it?
It's your goodness,
Yeah.
It really is. It's a really specific kind of goodness as well. It's not really to do with, I remember Santa being invoked, not really to do with my schoolwork or anything like that. It's to do with how you are at home and how you play with your brothers and sisters particularly, and your friends.
Yeah, domestic obedience, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and goodness and niceness.
Yeah. Which are all kind of, again, like you were just saying about the kind of the Christian Foundation thing. So what was the term you used? Ambient Christian thing. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Love that. That sounds like a great Spotify category. That thing is like it's like mild, and again, this is so bloody Victorian as well. Mild Christian virtues of childliness. You know,
Yes.
be seen and not heard. You know, do as you're told. Be a good little kid. You know, not for your teachers. Doesn't matter. Be a good little kid when you're at home, and we have to worry about you. And you'll be rewarded. You know, and this is kind of the payoff for that. Otherwise, kind of just like enclosed spiritual self-satisfaction that you're meant to have from being good. It's like no. It's like there's tangible reward at the end.
When you get at the end of it,
Yeah.
you do actually get a stocking full of presents.
Yeah.
Or maybe just Coca-Cola.
That's the other thing, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if any of our questions are going to cover it, but like the sign of presents to look out for. I'm sorry, I know we've passed this one, but like, sorry, just cut that a bit.
Okay, no problem.
I was going to go on about. I can't remember. Fuck it.
All right. Do you have anything else on what later years? What's your goodness? Oh, that's it, really, isn't it?
I could. Yeah, no.
No. I mean, no.
that's
You can keep going though.
No, I can't.
Alright.
As I've just shown, I think. As I'm just flailing wildly for something to say. Sorry, mate, this is a big chunk to cut.
All right. No. I mean, it doesn't make no difference how long it is.
It's just one button. Isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so things we need to be wary of. It's not in this advert, but certainly coming off the back of what we were just discussing, if you've been naughty and not nice, you might get some coal.
Yeah, Christmas can be bad.
That's a sad thing. I actually was looking for it on the internet, and some people's parents did actually give them coal, or Santa brought them coal. And awful. I don't approve. I hope all those people are having lovely Christmases nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of whether or not it's kind of like actual child abuse. Maybe not. Maybe that's a bit hyperbolic. But the kind of the inner arseholishness that speaks to in that parent that's a really good judge of their character.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think this is the thing with Christmas, and I sort of mentioned it, was the possibility of exclusion. The way that exclusion is almost baked right into our feeling of Christmas, that we none of us feel like we're achieving Christmas properly. And yet, the radical exclusion of being completely left out and forgotten by Santa, the little boy who Santa Claus forgot, of course, is a song, is miserable.
Yeah,
it's horrible to think on, really.
And it kind of it sort of replays again the same tragedy that we're living throughout the year. Is that some people can't have this warmth. They can't go. Plenty of people don't go to bed with full bellies, basically. That's a common tragedy. Christmas does, like suicide rates, massive at Christmas. Like the exclusion is very real. Happens to a lot of people, and that kind of injunction of Santa coming, and like as we've touched on, he demands that you enjoy. If you can't, and it's very easy to just look at your circumstances and be like, we've talked about how easy it is to feel Christmas slipping through your fingers or not even notice that it's there. It's also very, very easy to look around yourself and go, Christmas isn't here.
Yeah, just not present.
Yeah, I've got plenty of friends who kind of don't Christmas much, and that's fine. They don't appear to be missing anything. But if you do want that thing and he doesn't come, yeah, that's the universe breaking, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a really heavy blow, indeed.
And as we sort of touched on, there are sort of points of like consumerist hegemony that you can't support for those 11 months without the Santa bit being there to kind of give you your slightly paltry reward.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like the fact that you're allowed to be free and happy for a week a year.
Yeah.
That's not great. It's not.
It's not ideal, is it?
Shows everything else into quite sharp relief, and the kind of the what's it called, the perineum of Christmas, the week between Christmas and New Year.
The perineum.
Yeah, the bit in between.
Okay. I just wanted to check I knew in my head what perineum meant, and I just completely doubted it, but it turns out I do. Fine.
It's called there's a better word for it. There's like the Christmas slump. What do people call it?
Crimbo limbo.
Crimbo limbo. That's right. Thank you very much.
Crimbo limbo is very nice.
Like when you begin to remember what the rest of the year is like.
Yeah. So that fear of missing it or being missed, I think that's the thing that comes out quite strongly in the '98 Coca-Cola advert with the little boy who is running to get through the crowd so he can see the Santa trucks.
Yeah, but the whole town is so into it and it's become such a massive communal event. Who's looking after that little kid? No one.
Exactly, nobody's looking out for him, and by the time he gets to the front of the line so he can see the road, the trucks have passed.
Yeah.
And it's not. I don't think he's feeling like he's missed Santa. I think he's feeling like Santa forgot about him. And then, suddenly the back of the truck, one of the Santas, or Santa's representation on the back of the truck kind of gives him a little nod and a wink and a...
Yeah, and a Coke bottle kind of materialises out of special effects in front of him.
And thank God a bottle of Coke.
Yeah.
But it's funny that, this is an advertising campaign that is so absent of threat, really, when you compare it to loads of other representations of Santa, loads of other films, and yet that sense of missing it.
Yeah. That's what, this is one of the reasons I don't like that version as much, is because it tries to do a kind of a Hollywood thing at you. It tries to kind of take you on a narrative, whereas I think the first one wins because it's not about a narrative, although there is an A to B in it if you want. It's just about the mood. And it's really clear that it just wants you to feel the rhythm, feel the transition from non-Christmas to Christmas. It just wants to do that to you. It doesn't want to give you this kind of moral lesson at the end of it. It just gives you the experience. There's the other thing, isn't it? Is that like those trucks, we know that Santa's on the outside of them, and again in the sequels, it's made quite clear that it is just Coke that he brings.
Yeah.
They're kind of blown in on the winds of spirit. It's like it shows us how that kind of absence and that missingness that you were there is kind of, it's like Schrodinger's Christmas inside those trucks, right? It's like if you open them up, what is going to be in there?
What is in there?
Yeah.
I wondered that. Is it literally a wash with Coca-Cola? Is Santa in there with the elves? Like, is it like a fireplace scene in there?
Weird, isn't it? Because it's total just spectacularization of everything. Like, you're like, no, it's just the picture on the outside, right? That's all you need to see.
Inside there's a bunch of crates of Coke.
Yeah, which is like an awful thing to open up, and somebody's standing there, an elf is standing there with like a piece of paper and going, "Can you sign for this, man?"
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But isn't that always the thing with presents? Like that the wrapped gift looks more like a gift than the thing inside, always.
Yeah, sure. Like, it's almost, no matter how good the present is, that moment of anticipation as you're just about to tear the paper off, that's actually the juice, right? That's the kind of the moment of magic. And also I was thinking, while I was watching this advert and sort of thinking about it in a way which was kind of too unnecessarily complex, and this kind of like did my head in again a little bit, it's not Christmas Eve.
No.
So this is the thing, is right, it can't be Santa coming because Santa comes on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So this is just a representation of him.
Yeah, we can see because people are still putting up Christmas decorations, like people are out and about. It's not Christmas Eve.
No, and I was thinking, so does Santa come to town twice?
Yeah.
No, that's an abomination.
No.
What he does do is he sends this kind of messenger of himself, which feels like a reindeer, but maybe isn't, because maybe the reindeer are only kept for special Christmas Eve occasions as well. He kind of like sends out this forerunner kind of like ghost of his presence, even though he only appears as a ghost when he's fully realised. That kind of like Christmases you up first.
Yeah.
And it ties it much more in with how we live day to day. It ties it in with our understanding of the changing of the seasons. It ties it much more into how we understand the way that our social relations kind of shift at this time as well. It's much more than I think it's a really like excellent piece of work, and I think it kind of, even though it's got this kind of like horrible crass commercialism on it, it shows you what Christmas is. It just kind of like, it shows you how it covers that span of time, and how it has all of these kind of untouchable elements that are present and absent at the same time. You've just got so much to think about there.
It's lovely, isn't it? It's light in the woods. I really like that you bring up the crass commercialism, because I think this is a really important point, and we have been kind of touching on it throughout. Another thing about who needs to be wary, I think maybe Coca-Cola need to be wary, because as I've said, it seems like maybe Santa, these adverts are better adverts for Santa than they are for Coke.
Yeah.
And he's doing a very good job of co-opting their company if we look at it from the other angle. And we've been talking throughout about kind of non-standard systems of exchange, or in fact just non-capitalist, because the idea we have is that capitalist systems of exchange are the only way that goods move.
Yes, by describing them as standard,
yeah, you see the culture at work there, of course, because actually loads of places all over the world and loads of times, and even here, capitalism has to jockey for position with other ways in which goods are moved around. And one of them is indeed gift exchange, which is how we draw other people closer to us. It is how we make ourselves bigger in the world. It is how we say, this person matters to me and I want them in my life for at least one more year. And we can say, that Christmas is a time when all these kind of good feelings are kind of, these good pro-social forces are sort of co-opted by crass commercialism. But there's another way of looking at it, and this was brought up by the anthropologist John Davis in, I believe, 1992, so slightly prefiguring this advert. And he said, we can look at it instead as a time when the market is co-opted by feelings of love and warmth and reciprocity and family and all of those good things.
Yeah.
And I think Santa on the back of that truck, giving a bit of a nod and a wink, dressed in red, I reckon Coca-Cola want to be a bit concerned about who they're letting into their house, because I think he's going to tear the whole thing down.
Mate, I think that's brilliant. Yeah, I agree. I mean, so Saint Nick had an ancestor, right? We like to talk up these local connections on the Shadow Trap if we can. And there was a guy called Peter Kropotkin. He's a very famous theorist of anarchism, and that basically he was a distant relative. He was like a Russian aristocrat himself, distant relative of Saint Nicholas, the actual
really?
one. Yeah,
wow.
And basically had a big white beard, and so everyone was like, "You kind of look like Father Christmas," and he was like, "I know." He kind of talks about exactly that. Is that although like anarchism is like an inherently kind of like utopian sort of philosophy or outlook, and that's obviously a big part of its appeal. The way that like Christmas is the thing that can redeem everything else, the way that Santa is the guy who actually has got the factory that works, like the good one.
Yeah.
It shows us a lot, and Kropotkin thought this, or at least kind of hinted that he did. He could be the one. He's the thing that already exists, that we already have, that gives us a gateway out of the other thing that we've got.
Right.
Right. He's the moment of breakage, where actually it doesn't have to be like a momentary breakage. If you just Christmas enough, and God, this is exactly what we all hope happens to Scrooge when he wakes up on Boxing Day, right?
Yes.
Is that he doesn't just go back to being like an evil landlord again. He he keeps his red scarf on and continues to be this great guy that he was the day before. And that's kind of what Christmas must be and should be, and what it's performing for the Coca-Cola company, watch out guys, is that it's kind of giving us an escape portal. Like, we can go through here and stay here if we're smart enough.
Absolutely. Nobody in those adverts buys their Coca-Cola. That never happens.
Do you know what I mean?
Right?
Yeah.
You don't just deserve a lovely ice cold Coca-Cola because you paid money for it.
You deserve one because it's bloody Christmas.
And you're nice, and you're good, and have yourself something for free, guys.
Even if you're not, right? I know this kind of goes against what we've been saying about coal and whatnot, but even if you're not, the fact that there's still Coke there and you want it, that's good enough, mate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can have that.
Have a present.
And that kind of, that's also the lesson of how we close the cage as well. That's our final question.
Yeah.
Is how do we close the shadow trap and make sure that this big jolly bugger is going to be in here for the next 11 months at least. You have to give in.
You have to give in.
I think this is kind of also like a theme of the shadow trap. If you want to meet goblins, you got to give in to the goblins. If you want to meet ghosts, you got to die. Yeah. this is how, you know, you close the cage by living that Christmas spirit.
Yeah.
There are loads of ways that you do it. Some people have it forced on them, some people find their own way into it. You do it by drinking a glass of Coke in the snow. You do it by going sledging with your friends in the first fall of the year. You do it by, you know, just taking that piece of Christmas and keeping it in your heart forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think this is a lovely thing, is that.
It's a big kind of like big up Christmas wrap up.
Yeah. Very good at Christmas, and then you don't. Right. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I think it's impossible, perhaps more impossible than it has even been up till now, for us to catch this creature. I feel like Santa Claus is way too powerful. I think we thought that we could use this text as a guidebook for capturing, and as we said throughout, it feels like it's an invocation. It feels like it's working the other way. Santa works on us. He has too much belief. He has amassed too much debt.
Yeah.
We owe him so much. How could we try and catch him, and why would we want to?
Yeah, I think I kind of came to a pretty similar conclusion when I was like, all right, so we're putting Santa in a cage? I think, like, that sounds like not something that I want to do. Yeah, I mean, precisely. We closed the door of the cage by like using mince pies and goodwill and gravy, and then at the end of it, all we can hear deep within the pit is that ho 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 chuckling, and we realise that he doesn't mind being in there. He's not really in there at all.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't catch him. He caught us once again.
Awesome.
Okay, brilliant.
That's a good place to start. Have we done it?
Yeah, loads.
Okay, cool. Okay, that's it. Start again. A bit too much. Okay, that's it. Case 4 of the Shadow Trap is closed.
4 monsters.
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus isn't in there, unfortunately.
No, still 3 just in there, but we've successfully completed 4 cases at least. Right,
Yeah.
So we're probably going to take a couple of weeks over the Christmas period. I'm sure you understand we've all got a hell of a lot of presents to buy before then in order to complete our successful personal invocations. And please join us in the new year when we are going to squirm in our seats with fear and delight as we dig into Ron Underwood's, yeah, who? 1990 B-movie masterwork Tremors. Come on guys, it's Tremors, because we are hunting for some bloody big worms.
Exciting times, guys.
Thanks ever so much for listening. Reach out to us through all the usual channels, questions, suggestions for the refinements to the methodology, all that good stuff, always very welcome. And cheers for listening. Of course, before we go, there's something we really should say.
I think we have to say this time.
Merry Christmas, everybody!
Very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year.
Season's greetings and a Happy New Year to you all. Thanks for listening, bye!
Bye!